Hello, I'm Phoenix City Council Member Carlos Garcia with District 8. We will never replace in-person teaching, but during these trying times, our children still need to continue to learn. The City of Phoenix is proud to partner with both the Osborne and Roosevelt school districts to bring you PHXTV Classroom Study Hall. Youth and education is a priority for Phoenix. That's why the city is bringing you the study hall to your home during this next hour right here on Phoenix TV. Learning should never stop, so get ready for class. Here's the study hall.
Hello again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mr. Boyd, and I work at Clarendon Elementary School in the Osborne School District. Over the last couple weeks, we've been learning about social emotional learning. The first week, we discussed identifying emotions and the 3 brain states. Last week, we discussed triggers and things that can inspire certain emotions to take place. And this week, we're going to talk about how to regulate those emotions. So first, we talked about the emotions that exist. Then we talked about what triggers those emotions. And today, we're going to discuss what to do once you feel those emotions. Before we get into that, we're going to jump into our Brain Smart Start. Remember, Brain Smart Start has 4 steps: unite, connect, disengage stress, and make a commitment for the day. For our uniting activity, I'm going to give you another fun fact about me, another fun job that I had in the past. It wasn't really a job, I didn't get paid for it, but it was still a really fun experience. Check it out.
Last week I told you about how I was able to work for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Well, one of the people that I worked with at the Arizona Diamondbacks was able to get me a connection with the Arizona Cardinals to be a flag runner.
During my short time with the Cardinals, I was able to run flags on the field in 2 different games, and I was able to carry and wave a flag in a parade for the Cardinals. It was a really fun experience, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. Being down in the inflatable Cardinal tunnel, the crowd is going crazy, the music is playing loud, and all of a sudden, I hear click, clack, click, clack, and I look over my shoulder, and standing directly behind me is Larry Fitzgerald, and I was just like, just completely starstruck to see one of my idols, one of my heroes. And then all of a sudden, this guy with a clipboard is saying like, go, 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 and we're running down the field. I'm holding the flag. People are going crazy. There's fire being shot out of the ground. It was out of control. It was the biggest adrenaline rush I've ever had in my life. It was a super fun experience. For our connection activity today, we're going to do 2 cross-lateral movements. The first one, you're going to take your right finger and point it across your body. And you're going to make a circle that goes away from your body at the top and towards your body at the bottom. Pretty simple. Then you're going to take your left pointer finger, point it the opposite direction, and you're going to make another circle, but this time you're going to go towards your body on the top and away from your body on the bottom. So they're going in opposite directions. Let's see if we can do it. It's really difficult. I'm not sure if I did it right. I think that I did. The next cross-lateral movement that we're going to do is one that I've tried several times and I can't do it, but I think it's really fun, it's really challenging, and I want you to try it at home. This one's called hammer and saw. So you're going to take your left hand and you're going to pretend that you're holding a hammer and you're going to be hammering a pretend nail. And then you're also going to take your right hand, pretend you're holding a saw, and pretend that you're sawing an imaginary piece of wood. So you're hammering and sawing. Try to do them at the same time. I'm probably going to mess this up. I don't know if I did it. I think I did. Try it at home and see if you can do better than I did. For today's disengaged stress, we're going to do two different breathing strategies. One is called the drain. If you watched last week's episode, in Schubert is a Star, they talked about the drain breathing strategy, and we're going to do it today. So for the drain, you sit up nice and straight. You hold your arms out in front of you. When you breathe in, you clench your fists, you tense up your muscles, you squeeze up your shoulders, you get really tense as you breathe in. When you breathe out, you just let all of the tension go. Remember, it's really important to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let's do it again. Breathe in. One more. Breathe in. And out. Our second breathing strategy is going to be one that was created by a fourth grader at Clarendon Elementary School. I can't remember which fourth grader created it, but I know that he or she was in Miss Rivera's class. She or he taught the breathing strategy to Miss Rivera, and then Miss Rivera taught it to me, and now I do it with children and with teachers when we have our professional development. So roller coaster breathing is our second breathing strategy. So you breathe in through your nose as the roller coaster climbs up, and out through your mouth as the roller coaster goes down. Breathe in. Out. Last one, we're going to hold our breath before we breathe out. Breathe in. Hold it. And breathe out. Wow. I feel better after taking some deep breaths. Our last step of the Brain Smart Start is the commitment. So for today's commitment, we are going to commit to owning our big emotions like anger, sadness, disappointment, things like that. And we are going to view those emotions as something that you are allowed to experience, manage, and then regulate. Today's lesson is going to be all about how we do those things. We're going to experience the emotions, manage the emotions, and then come up with steps to help us regulate those emotions so that way we can elevate our brain states back up to the executive state where we can make the big decisions and we can make learning possible. So without any further discussion, let's jump into the 5 steps of self-regulation.
Here we have a flow map describing the 5 steps of self-regulation. They are I am, I calm, I feel, I choose, and I solve. The first step of the 5 steps to self-regulation is I am. When you recognize an overwhelming emotion or feeling and you need help calming down, it's time to move to the safe place. The safe place is a location typically in the back corner of a classroom where kids go when they are feeling overwhelmed with big emotions like anger and sadness, and they are able to take the 5 steps of self-regulation to help find a balance in their emotions before returning back to the classroom. The second step towards self-regulation is I calm. Once you're in the safe place, you will choose one of the breathing strategies to help your body relax and send your brain to a higher state. Some of the breathing strategies that we've gone over are the drain, balloon, star, roller coaster, flowers and candles. Breathing strategies are great ways to get good oxygen into your body, slow your heart rate down, and help your brain elevate its current state. Once you have chosen a breathing strategy to help calm your brain, you are ready for the I feel step, the third step to self-regulation. This is where you name and identify the emotion that you're experiencing. After you have calmed down, you will choose an emotion that you feel in that moment. Once you're able to identify what you're feeling, you might be better equipped to take the next steps to help regulate that emotion. The fourth step to self-regulation is I choose. After you have identified the emotion you feel, you will choose an additional calming strategy like reading a book, talking to your classroom encourager, writing, drawing, maybe holding a stuffed animal for a little bit, maybe playing with a sensory fidget. Things like that are going to be helpful in extending your calming strategies. The fifth and final step for self-regulation is I solve. It is now time to solve the problem. How will you do things differently? What is something that you can do or say differently the next time this type of situation comes up, so that way you can avoid feeling triggered? What can you do differently to help the environment around you to prevent yourself from feeling those big, overwhelming emotions?
You just spent some time learning about the 5 steps of self-regulation. A review. The first step is I am. This is where you are first recognizing that you are not in your highest executive state and that something is bothering you. Something is wrong, something needs to be addressed. The second step is I calm. This is where we use one of the breathing strategies that we've discussed and help us get oxygen into our body, help us slow our heart rate down, and help us start to process the emotions that we're experiencing. The third step is I feel. This is an important part where you label the emotion, where you name the emotion that you're experiencing, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, stuff like that. The third step is where you choose. This is where you choose something to help you cope or something to help you deal with that emotion, something that's going to help you improve your brain state, improve your emotional well-being. The final step is I solve. After we've had chances to identify our emotions, take some deep breaths, soothe our emotions, cope with those emotions, now we are able to create a plan because we have helped our brain elevate into its highest state. We're in our executive state. We're capable of making decisions and problem solving and being creative. Now that we're up in that executive state, now is with the part where I solve and I come up with a plan to help me the next time I'm feeling this way, or ideally to prevent a similar experience from happening in the future. So this is a fancy little board that my good friend Diana Brown is letting me borrow. You can purchase it online, or you can also kind of create one of your own, but it has some helping tools that are going to help you independently go through the 5 steps of self-regulation. So the first thing it has is this mirror right here. This mirror is helpful because you can look at it, and just like we did in our first episode where we looked at the nonverbal cues of our feeling buddies, you're going to do the same thing, but with your own face. You're going to look at the mirror and see if your eyebrows are turned down or turned up, if your smile is turned down or turned up. What's happening with your nose? Is it crinkled or is it relaxed? Things like that. By looking for those nonverbal cues on your face, you're going to be able to understand that you are feeling upset, and you're going to be able to take that first step in owning your emotions. Remember our commitment for the day. The second step says I calm. Now, the I calm isn't a part of this board, but you don't really need the board for this part. You're just going to choose one of your breathing strategies. Today we talked about the drain and roller coaster. We know several breathing strategies that are going to be used in this second step for I calm. When we're in that first and second step, this next part says my goal. What am I trying to accomplish right now? This is a part that you need to think about and consider. What are you trying to do? What would you like to happen? What would you like to be the outcome of the situation? So you have some options. Feel better, get out of work, calm down, or stay upset. What do I really want to do right now? I'm going to go ahead and place feel better in the my goal section. Now I flip it over. I'm on the third step, the I feel. Here we have kind of like feeling buddies. They're like the little Velcro versions of the feeling buddies, and they have the different emotions that our feeling buddies experience, like frustrated, sad, scared, disappointed, angry, things like that. So I'm going to reflect back on what I observed with my nonverbal cues. I'm going to look and see if my face matches any one of these emotions, any one of these feeling buddies, and that's going to help me identify and name the emotion that I'm experiencing. Once I have identified and labeled the emotion that I'm experiencing, then I travel down to the I choose part. These are the things that are going to help us cope with the emotions that we're experiencing. So we have things like read a book, draw a picture, talk to someone, write in a journal, things like that. Those are all different things that you can do to help soothe the emotions that you're experiencing and help you regulate the emotions that are making it difficult for you to think or making it difficult for you to work with your classmates and stuff like that. Then the I solve part, this is the most important part of the process. This is where you come up with a plan for what you're going to do next time or how you're going to resolve whatever conflict there may be. That could be a conflict resolution that your teacher manages. That could be choosing to sit next to classmates that you know are going to be helpful to your learning. That could be, a resolution could be I commit to taking deep breaths when I start to feel triggered, things like that. Each situation, each person, each emotion is unique. So nothing is going to be the exact same every single time. It's up to you to identify your emotions, label your emotions, use different strategies of breathing and soothing to regulate your emotions, and then come up with a plan. If you're struggling to come up with a plan, your teacher is a wonderful person that you can ask for help. Now let's move on to our last part of our segment, our wish well. That just about wraps up today's lesson on social emotional learning. Today, we discussed the 5 steps of self-regulation, which are I am, I calm, I feel, I choose, and I solve. Those 5 steps are going to be very helpful in identifying emotions and coming up with strategies to cope with those emotions and move forward in a helpful, productive way. The final part of our show is going to be our wish well. Remember, wish wells do a few things. They help strengthen the bond between me and the person that I'm wishing well. They help me strengthen my own sense of empathy, where I can experience the emotions that other people are having. It puts a good energy into the world around me. It really creates a positive vibe just in my own little environment. So for today, I want you to think about if there's anybody that you would like to send good vibes or wish well. I think every week I'm going to wish well to all the students who are at home and not able to come to school and hang out with their friends. I'm also going to wish well to the teachers that are missing their students so much. I also want to wish well to my softball team. I haven't seen them since spring break, which was 2 months ago, which is crazy. I miss them very much, and I'm really sad that we didn't get to finish our softball season. I also want to wish well again to anybody that hasn't been able to see grandparents or other family members during this time of quarantine. I want to wish well to anybody that's struggling with health, with money, with missing people. Anybody who's struggling to be their best, I want to wish them well as well. So, from my heart to your heart, I wish you well. We'll see you next week.
Hi, welcome. My name is Miss Padilla, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Bernard Black Elementary in the Roosevelt School District. I'm so happy you're here. Today's learning targets are: I can identify syllables in a word, and I can use strategies to read words that I don't know. Okay, so we're going to get started with our first part. Our first part is singing the alphabet song. Okay, so get ready to sing with me. Ready? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Here's the hard part. L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y and Z. Now you know your ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? All right, good job. Okay, next we are going to get started with our phonemic awareness part. Now, phonemic awareness is very, very important for us to have before we start learning how to read. Okay, so phonemic awareness is playing with sounds, which I love to do. Okay, we're going to play with sounds today by doing syllables today. Okay, syllables are word parts inside of words. Now, we can have big words that have a lot of syllables in them, or we can have smaller words that just have one syllable in them. Now, learning syllables is very important because we need to be able to break up a word so that when you get a little older, you'll be able to write big words by listening to those syllables and even writing the small words and listening to those syllables. Okay? All right, so let's get started. So when I say the word table, I hear table. You've already heard it has two syllables. Now, I also like to, when I do syllables, I also like to clap. So I'm going to do table. Can you clap with me? Ready? Table. Good job. All right, let's practice clapping with some other words. Okay, let's do purple. Let's listen again. Purple. Ready? Purple. Very good. Let's do backpack. Ready? Backpack. Butterfly. Butterfly. I heard 3 syllables in the word butterfly. Let's practice with the word hot dog. Hot dog. Ready? Hot dog. 2 syllables. Okay, and our last word we're going to clap is the word goat. Ready? You clap it. Goat. Just 1 syllable. Now, we might try to make it longer and say goat, but it has 1 syllable in it. Goat. Just really, really simple word. Okay? All right, now we're going to get ready to play our syllable game. Okay, now that you can hear the syllables and you can clap them, we're going to do something a little bit harder. Okay, we're going to jump the syllable. Not harder, actually a little bit more fun. Okay, you ready? Okay, we are going to jump the word camping. Ready? Say it with me first. Camping. Okay, let's go. Camping. 2 jumps. Summer. 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 2 jumps. Helicopter. Again. Helicopter. Ready? Helicopter. 4 jumps. That's a big word. Let's jump the word book. Ready? Book. Just one syllable. Flower. Ready? Flower. 2 syllables. Hamburger. Ready? Hamburger. 3 jumps, which means it has 3 syllables. Good job. Thank you so much for playing with me. Now let's get started on our story. In today's read aloud, we are going to work on fix-up strategies, how to read unfamiliar words, or words we do not know. So what can we do when we are reading a word and we don't know what it means? Here are some strategies. We can look at the pictures. So in this sentence, it says the kids stand in line. Line. Remember to always sound out the word to make sure you are reading the correct word. So I see the picture. Line must mean to stand behind somebody. We can also look at other words around it. So if we don't know what this word means, he climbs up high. Climbs is not a word. Up high. Climbs. He climbs up high. So we used other words around it. And we also used, does it make sense to read the word correctly? And our last strategy is we can look inside of the word to see if we see any root words inside. So I see this word is baseballs. Well, I see ball is inside, so it must be a type of ball, baseballs. Okay, so here are our meaning clues or our strategies all together. So we can remember, look at the picture. We can look at the other words around it, or we can look inside of the word. Okay, so we're going to be using these strategies today while reading our story. Today's story is titled, A Hard-Working Dog. The author is Nancy Lieber, and the illustrator is Julie Durrell. Now we're going to build a little bit of background knowledge on hard-working dogs. So I noticed that in these two pictures, these dogs have something around their body, and it looks like there's a person holding on to it. This one, the person is not holding on to it. Maybe they have a leash here like this person. And this dog here, this says, Guide Dogs for the Blind. So these hardworking dogs must be helping people. Okay, and do you see they're either walking next to them or kind of walking in front a little? Okay, so now that we have a little bit of background knowledge about these hardworking dogs and what they look like, let's get started on our story. I am a dog with a hard job. Can you tell why? It's because I work with someone who is blind. Let's look at the word blind. What does blind mean? So we are going to use two strategies here. The first strategy is we're going to look at other words around it. So here's part of the sentence. Someone who is blind. So someone means a person who is blind. Okay, so now let's look at the picture here. Okay, so I see there's a person here and the dog wearing that leash that we saw in the pictures, the real life pictures. He's walking in front of her. Maybe he's helping her to see. Maybe she cannot see. So I think the word blind means someone who cannot see. So let's reread the sentence. It's because I work with someone who is blind. It makes sense. I am a kind of dog called a Labrador. You can call me a lab. So let's look at the word Labrador. I am a kind of dog called a Labrador. So it must mean that that's what that kind of dog is called. Like there's different kinds of dogs. There's Chihuahuas, there's Golden Retrievers. This one is called a Labrador. But for short, he says, you can call me a lab. Guide dogs like me are often labs. Okay, so here's the word guide. So I'm going to use the strategy of look at the picture. And I know that he is still with a lady and she's still holding on to him. He must be showing her where to go. He must be leading her. Like all guide dogs, I am smart. I get along well with people. I do what I am asked. I do not bark too often. My first home was a place where dogs are bred. I was one of many dark brown pups. Okay, so let's look at the word bread. Now, I don't think it's the type of bread that we eat. I think it means something else. So let's read the sentence again. My first home was a place where dogs are bred. Well, I see in the picture, I want you to look at it and tell me what you see. I see many puppies and I see a mom dog. So maybe it means where mommy dogs have their puppies. My first home was a place where dogs are bred. I think that's correct. I think that's what it means. Okay, let's keep reading. I was one of many dark brown pups. We were always together. We were never too far from our mother. So they must have been some happy puppies. We pups always got good care. We ate the best food and played with great toys. We chased each other around the yard. A few times a week, we even got back rubs. Those hands always felt so nice. Before long, I was 9 weeks old. It was time to leave my first home. I was still too little to start guide dog training, but I was big enough to learn things. So I went to Martha and Mark's house. All kinds of people take in pups like me. Like Martha and Mark, they don't get paid. They give us good homes. They keep us away from harm. They give us their time and care. They want to help us become guide dogs. So here's the word guide again. We're practicing that word. I spent a year with Martha and Mark. I learned things a dog needs to know. Martha and Mark house trained me. Okay, so let's look inside of the word. House trained. I wonder what that word means. I see the word house and I see the word trained. Well, I don't see a choo-choo train here, so I don't think it means that word train. I know the word train also means to learn. So maybe to learn, house trained, in the house. So we used the pictures as a strategy, and we also looked inside of the word. Okay, let's continue reading. I learned to stay or come when they called. They showed me how to be a good, smart dog. Then I went back to my first home. Most of us pups went back to take some tests. If we passed, we could start guide dog school. I passed with high marks. Wow, he must have done a good job. I started working with a man named Bart. At first, we spent time in the park. That's because there were no cars there. Bart had a lot to teach me. I learned my right from my left. I learned to move with the harness on my back. Harness, I wonder what that word means. Let's use our strategy of look at the pictures. So I see on this picture, there's something around his body and sticking out of his back. It looks different from this picture here. This one, the leash is only around his neck. And here, the whole thing is around his body. This must mean what a harness is. And I see another picture of a dog behind, looking like it's wearing a harness as well. So for this word, I used the strategy, look at the pictures. Bart saw that I was a smart dog. We started working on city streets. I learned to stop and let cars go before crossing the street. I learned to stop at steps too. Bart showed me the safe way to lead the blind. It was hard work, but I liked it. Bart and I worked together for 16 weeks. Then it was time for the hard part. I had to guide or lead someone. That's when I met Marla. Marla is blind. I use my sight for both of us. We learned to work together side by side. Marla always knows where we are going. I always find the safe way to get there. So let's look at this picture here. Now, Marla cannot see this hole here that this man is working in, but the guide dog, can see it. So he's going to have to go around the hole to keep Marla safe. Wow. Marla takes good care of me. She gives me plenty of dry food and water. She brushes my dark coat so it is clean and bright. Marla and I work and play together. We are never apart, day or night. I am always right by her side. And here's another picture of a guide dog here. He's wearing his harness like we learned in the story. And it looks like he may also be blind. But here I see a girl holding his arm. You may meet someone with a guide dog. There are a few things you should know. Number 1, never pet the guide dog when it is working. Very good. We never want to distract a guide dog who is working. If the dog is not working, always ask before you pet it. Do not feed the guide dog. Guide dogs usually have a special diet. You may wish to help someone with a guide dog. First ask, may I help you? When you help someone, give your left arm. Do not grab his or her arm. It is not safe to grab the guide dog or its leash. Okay, so what kind of strategies did we use in our read aloud? We used look inside the word, look at other words, and look at the pictures. I think look at the pictures was used a lot in our read aloud. It was a really good strategy for us to use. We also used sound out the words, and we remembered words that we used often, like the word guide. Thank you so much for listening to our read aloud and using our strategies. Good job, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we worked on syllables. We listened to a read aloud about guide dogs. And we also worked on some fix-up strategies when you get stuck on a word that you don't know. You guys did a great job today with me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!
Good morning, students. I'm Michael Roberts, Superintendent of the Osborne School District in Central Phoenix.
And I'm Quentin Boyd, Superintendent of the Roosevelt School District in South Phoenix.
We're pleased to have this partnership with the City of Phoenix to take Phoenix students on a new learning adventure right here on Phoenix TV.
Just because our school buildings are closed doesn't mean the learning stops.
We have the best, most creative teachers from Roosevelt and Osborne school districts on board to provide you with a great learning experience.
Okay, students, that's the bell, so the Phoenix TV Study Hall resumes. Here's your next lesson.
Good morning. My name is Maestra Aguirre. I'm a teacher at Encanto School in the Osborne School District. Something special about me is that I was born in California, I moved a lot, and then I ended up here in Phoenix, Arizona.
And good morning, friends. My name is Mrs. Herskovici, and I also teach at Encanto School. I teach first grade friends in the Osborne School District. Something special about me is that I was born in Arizona, and I've lived here my whole life.
Today we're going to be reading a very special book with you about Cesar Chavez. And while we're reading, we're going to be asking I wonder questions.
So I have a poster here behind me that says, good readers ask questions. And we know that you're an expert reader and you ask questions while you're reading stories. Some of the question words that we're going to be using today are who, what, when, where, why, and how. And the best part about using question words is that you get to use this super helpful sentence stem, I wonder.
So as we read before, during, and after, we'll ask these I wonder questions and use the circle map together.
So today our objective is I can ask questions before, during, and after our story.
Before we read, I like to do a picture walk so I can learn more about the story, get an idea of what I'm going to be reading, maybe some important concepts to keep an eye out for. So we'll look through the pictures and think about what we see. What do you see on the cover, Ms. Herskovich?
Well, Maestra Aguirre, I wonder, who is that man on the cover? He's probably important because he's on the cover of our story. So I wonder, who is he?
Great. So we asked an I wonder question even before we started. I'm going to put that up on our circle map. Who is that? Great I wonder question. So this story, Cesar Chavez, Champion and Voice of Farm Workers. This book is by Suzanne Slade, illustrated by Jeffrey Thompson. Oh, here I see a photograph. That tells me it's a nonfiction text. That means it's a book about real people or real events where I can learn information and facts. Here I see a boy. He's in a store. He looks happy. What do you see?
I see that same little boy, but he does not look as happy. I see a car with a lot of things on top of it, and I see some other characters in the picture. I wonder, where are they going if they have their car next to them?
Where are they going? That's an I wonder question. It starts with a question word. Let me go ahead and put that up here on our circle map. Where are they going? We don't know yet, but we'll find out. Here I see a lot of people in tents, and they don't look happy. I don't think they're camping. We'll have to keep reading to find out what happens next. What do you see?
Well, Maestra Aguirre, I see what looks like could probably be a farm, and it looks like they're working really hard. That's what I see in the picture. I wonder, how is that man feeling? Because he doesn't look like he's very happy.
Let's add that to our circle map as well. How is he feeling? Here I see lots of photographs. I see a man, it looks like he's in a uniform, a family, and then a wedding picture. What do you see?
I see a lot of people in that picture. I see signs that they're holding, and I see, it looks like a really long line of people all coming together.
Wow, I see lots of people in this group, and they're all holding signs. Some of them have eagles on them, some of them have grapes on them. I'm really interested to read the words and see what happens next.
I see that farm again, but this time I see a tractor, and I know that when people use tractors on farm, it really helps them do a lot of the hard work.
Oh, here I see, I think that's Cesar Chavez, And I see that he's talking to a big group of people here. And this is something else that you'll find in nonfiction text. It's a timeline. A timeline tells you more about what happened in history over the course of years, sometimes even months. Here's some important words in the glossary. We're going to go back and we're going to read the story word for word and find out more about Cesar Chavez. And we're going to keep asking our I wonder questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cesar Chavez was born March 31st, 1927, on his family's farm in Arizona. His parents had moved from Mexico before Cesar was born. Cesar and his 5 brothers and sisters helped with the farm and run the family grocery store. Cesar spoke Spanish at home, but the children learned English at school. In 1929, the Great Depression began in the United States. Many businesses closed. People lost their jobs. In time, Cesar's parents could not pay their bills. They had to sell their farm and grocery store, hoping to find a better life in California. The Chavez family left Arizona in 1938. When Cesar's family arrived in California, 250,000 migrant workers were already there. Many had lost their farms due to dry, hot weather. They came from states in the Midwest, the South, and the Southwest. For 10 years, the Chavez family moved from place to place, taking whatever jobs they could find. Because there were more workers than jobs, farm owners did not pay much. Cesar's family had little money for food. Sometimes they lived in a tent. I wonder, what does this word mean, migrant?
Well, Maestra, I've kind of heard a word similar to that before. I know that in 1st grade and 2nd grade, we learn a lot about butterflies, and the butterflies migrate from Mexico to the United States and to Canada. And I wonder, do you think migrate and migrant are similar?
That does sound similar. I'm going to put that I wonder question up here. What does migrant mean? I also noticed that in the text, it did say moved from place to place. So that makes sense.
Kind of like the butterflies.
Cesar finished 8th grade in 1942. Then he quit school to work full-time in the fruit, vegetable, and cotton fields. He needed to make money for his family. Cesar, like many farm workers, often used a tool called a short-handled hoe. To use it, workers had to lean over and twist their backs as they dug. The work was painful and difficult. Look, that was one of our questions. One of our questions was, how is he feeling? Did the text help you understand how he is feeling?
I'm glad that you read that page to me, Maestra Aguirre, because now I know that he is not feeling very happy. He's feeling overworked, and he's probably feeling very tired.
In 1944, Cesar joined the U.S. Navy. After serving 2 years, he returned to California and married Helen Favela. Cesar and Helen had met years earlier while working in the same field. Over time, the couple had 8 children. Cesar continued to work in the field, but he also spent a lot of time helping people in his community. And he never forgot the troubles of migrant farm workers. Cesar wanted to help farm workers. He listened to their stories and their ideas for change. He tried to think of peaceful ways to show other people the problems farm workers faced. In 1962, he started a union, the National Farm Workers Association, NFWA. Cesar believed farm owners would listen to workers if the workers stuck together. In the spring of 1966, Cesar led thousands of grape workers on a 340-mile, 544-kilometer, march across California. They wanted better pay and better living conditions. The march got a lot of attention. The union grew. Later that year, the NFWA became the United Farm Workers, UFW. So we were wondering, where are they going? And it just told us here in the text that Cesar led thousands of farm workers on a 340-mile march across the state of California.
That seems like a really important job, Maestra Aguirre.
I'm glad that we asked that question.
Me too.
A year later, in 1967, grape workers were still on strike. Cesar asked people throughout Canada and the United States to boycott grapes. If people refused to buy grapes, grape growers would be pressured to treat their workers better. In 1968, Cesar fasted for 25 days to bring more attention to the workers' problems. Finally, in 1970, growers agreed to pay their workers more money. That year, the UFW also helped do away with the short-handled hoe. Wow, what a great victory. Cesar also fought against the use of pesticides, something farmers sprayed to keep harmful bugs from destroying crops. Large amounts of pesticides made farm workers sick. In 1988, Cesar fasted for 36 days to bring attention to the problem.
Maestra Aguirre, I'm a little confused. He did so many great things for the other farm workers in California. Why is he still fighting to make their lives better?
That's a big question, an important question. I think we should add it to our circle map. Why is Cesar Chavez still fighting for farmers? They just had a victory on the last page, and now they're telling us that he's still fighting. Cesar continued to battle for workers' rights until April 23rd, 1993, when he died in his sleep. He was 66 years old. Today, new leaders continue Cesar's fight and keep his spirit of hope alive. I'm going to go back to that first page where we saw his photograph to finish up our nonfiction text. For many years, Cesar Chavez was a migrant worker, which meant he traveled from place to place to find work. He knew firsthand the low pay and unsafe working conditions farm workers faced. He wanted to make workers' lives better, so he showed them peaceful ways to get better treatment. He helped them form a union. He made sure their voices were heard. This is the story of Cesar Chavez. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for reading along with me, looking at the pictures, reading the text, and helping us ask these I wonder questions.
So while Maestra Aguirre was reading us that story, I was thinking that Cesar Chavez was very helpful in his community. And in my brain, I was wondering, when have you been helpful in your community? Do you see my brown sentence at the bottom? We're going to use that sentence to help us answer that question. When have I been helpful in my community? I should think about that. Oh, I'm ready. I have a big idea. I'm going to use the Brown sentence to help me answer. I was helpful when I helped my first grade friends plant a community garden. That was something we did together, and we all helped each other. What about you, Maestra?
I was thinking, how have I been helpful, like Cesar Chavez? I was helpful when I noticed a friend was sad. I asked him what happened. He said he lost his ball, and we went to go find it, and we were able to get him his lost ball, and he felt much better.
That was really nice of you. Maestra Aguirre, we did such a great job reading our story today. Let's go back to our objective and see if we did all of those great reading strategies. Okay. When we were reading our story, did we ask questions before we read it?
We did. We asked lots of questions before we actually read the text.
And while you were reading, I think I asked you questions during the read aloud.
That's true, you did.
And now that our story was over, we asked a question after the story about when we have been helpful as first grade friends and teachers.
Yes. When have you been helpful? Think about it. We want to hear your answer. Can you tell us, when is the time that you've been a leader and you've been helpful, just like Cesar Chavez? Go ahead and tell us. Wow, nice job.
It sounds like you were really helpful in your community.
We know that good readers ask questions like who, what, when, where, why, and how. And we use this circle map to brainstorm those ideas.
Well, friends, that's the end of our story about Cesar Chavez and the end of our thinking about asking good questions while we were reading. We had so much fun reading for you today, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to your story. We can't wait to read you your next story. My name's Mrs. Herscovici.
I'm Maestra Aguirre.
And we wish you well. Bye.
Hello, scholars. My name is Michelle Lampkin. I'm a teacher with the Roosevelt School District. I teach at John F. Kennedy Elementary, 4th grade. And today, our new strategy that we're going to work on is Fix Up. The Fix Up strategy is used by all good readers. And it's a lot of different strategies that help you comprehend the text that you're reading. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to use some of the Fix Up strategies if you have a whole story that you need to work on fixing up, or if you have just a word within the story that you need to work on just fixing up. If it is a whole story, you need to maybe back up and reread what you just read to make sure that you comprehend the story. Also, you may have to do some cross-checking. Does it make sense? Does it seem right? You may also need to retell or maybe review the story to make sure that you comprehend what's happening. Also, one of the strategies is adjust your reading rate. If you read too fast, you may miss something, so slow down and go back and reread. Another strategy is use text features. If you're reading informational text, use the text features. There may be a heading, there may be a graphic. Use the text features to help you comprehend the text better. Also, look for the main idea. Think about what that article or what that text is mostly about. See if you can figure it out. Then if you can, see if you can find at least 3 details that support your thinking of what the main idea is. And last but not least, stop and think as you read. Think about what is the problem, think about the events to help solve the problem, and think about the problem as it got solved. Think about if there's another solution to a problem. So that's one way that you can use the fix-up strategies to comprehend a whole text. If you are looking for just a word, the first thing you want to do is sound out words that you don't know. And let me tell you, using the best strategy is the best strategy for sounding out words. The B stands for break apart. The E stands for examine. The S stands for say it. See if you can say it correctly. And the T is think. Does it make sense when I use that word in the sentence? If you use the best strategy for sounding out words, I think you can figure it out. Next, you want to look at word stems like prefixes, or look for smaller chunks of words within a big word. Also, use your context clues to see if you can figure out what the word means. So you may have to, when you come to a word, stop and maybe read past it and go back and see if you can figure out what that word is or what it means. Also, replace the word with a word that means the same thing. So if you read a sentence that says, the kite was enormous, maybe enormous means small. But when you look at your picture and the kite is really big, maybe if you say, oh, the kite is big, you can replace the word and it makes sense. Also, if you come to a word that you don't know, skip the word and read completely to the end of the sentence. Once you've done that, go back and later try that word again and see if you can see if it makes sense. Last but not least, if you can't figure it out, use a dictionary. Dictionaries are our friends. They can help us say the word, they can tell us what part of speech the word is, and they can also tell us what the word means. So that's our strategy that we're going to use this time. And our story that we're going to use that with is How I Spent My Summer Vacation. Our read aloud today is How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Mark Teague. How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Wallace Bleff. When summer began, I headed out west. My parents told me I needed a rest. Your imagination, they said, is getting too wild. It will do you some good to relax for a while. Using the fix-up strategy, what is the main ideal of the text? So they put me on board a westbound train. When summer began, I headed out west. My parents told me I needed a rest. Your imagination, they said, is getting too wild. It will do you some good to relax for a while. So they put me on a westbound train. To visit Aunt Firm in her house on the plains. But I was captured by cowboys, a wild-looking crowd. Their manners were rough and their voices were loud. I'm trying to get to my aunt's house, I said, but they carried me off to their cowboy camp instead. The cattle boss growled as he told me to sit. We need a new cowboy, our old cowboy quit. We sure could use your help, so what do you say? I thought to myself, then said, okay. Then I wrote my Aunt Firm so she'd know where I'd gone. I said not to worry, I won't be long. Dear Aunt Firm, captured by cowboys, don't worry, see you soon. Love, Wallace. That night I was given a new set of clothes. Soon I looked like a wrangler from my head to my toes. But there's more to a cowboy then boots and a hat. I found out the next day and the day after that. Wrangler. I wonder what that word means. Wrangler. Well, if I look at my picture, they're in cowboy outfits. So I think a wrangler is someone who takes care of horses. Each day I discovered some new cowboy tricks. From roping, and riding, and making fire with sticks. After looking at some pictures, I need to clarify wrangler. They take care of cows too. Slowly the word spread all over the land. That Wrangler Kid Bluff is a first-rate cowhand. And we figured out what wrangler meant, but I wonder what a cowhand is. A wrangler is someone who rides horses and takes care of cows. So I think a cowhand is someone who also takes care of cows. The day finally came when the roundup was through. Aunt Fern called, "Come on over, bring your cowboys with you." She was cooking a barbecue that very same day, so we cleaned up a little and we headed her way. The food was delicious, there was plenty to eat, and the band that was playing just couldn't be beat. But suddenly I noticed a terrible sight. The cattle were stirring and stamping with fright. It's a scene I'll remember to my very last day. "They're gonna stampede," I heard somebody say. Stampede. Wonder what that means. Stampede. Well, the sentence before that says the cattle were stirring and stamping with fright. So maybe the cattle were scared. Just then they came charging. They charged right at me. I looked for a hiding place, a rock, or a tree. I think we were right about the word stampede because if you look, they're scared and they're running all toward Wallace. What I found was a tablecloth spread out on the ground. So I turned like a matador and spun it around. It was a new kind of cowboy, a frantic display. The cattle were frightened and stampeded away. He turned like a matador. I wonder what a matador is. Well, I think a matador is somebody who uses a cape, red cape in particular, to direct the cows to where to go. I once read a book about a matador who used his red cape to distract the cows. Then the cowboys all cheered, "Bluff's a true buckaroo." They shook my hand and slapped my back, and Aunt Fern hugged me too. I wonder what a buckaroo is. Well, I think a buckaroo is another word for cowboy because he did wrangle the bulls. And that's how I spent my summer vacation. And I can hardly wait for show and tell. Scholars, I hope you enjoyed that book. Now let's review the fix-up strategies. If you are using the fix-up strategies for a whole book, which we did that, we backed up and we read some parts and we discussed some of the vocabulary. We also adjusted our reading rate so that we read slower so that we could understand and comprehend what was happening in the book, the events. Also, we asked, what is the main idea? And we had to think about what the story was mostly about and come up with the main idea. While we were looking for the main idea, hopefully you look for 3 details which help with the main idea. So the main idea of our story was someone's summer vacation and the silly, wacky events that happened during the vacation, which made the story way more enjoyable. The 3 details that we have to support our main idea is Wallace said that his parents said he needed a break and he needed a rest. So we know that it's summer. We also know that he's going to go visit Aunt Fern. Aunt Fern lives out west. That's an indication that he's going on a trip for his summer vacation. We also use strategies for just fixing up words if we couldn't figure out the word. We sounded it out using the best strategy. We also used some words in context where we had to figure out what the word meant as we read on. For instance, the word stampede. We had to think about what the sentence before stampede said, and then we had to sound out the word, make sure we knew what the word stampede meant, and then we used it in a sentence. The example we used was, the cattle were stirring and stamping with fright. Stamping means that they're stepping quickly, and because they're frightened, we figured if they step quickly, it would evolve into a run. Another example of a fix-up strategy is to clarify words in context. We weren't real sure what the word matador meant, but looking at the picture and looking at the bulls, I remembered a story I read about a matador who swung his red cape to control bulls, and so that's what Wallace did with the red cape. Another example of a strategy we used is to use a dictionary. The word buckaroo was very unfamiliar to me, so I used a dictionary to look it up. The word buckaroo means cowboy or bronco buster. Well, Wallace was kidnapped by a group of cowboys, and he became a cowboy himself, and he wrangled bulls. Pretty neat book.
Good morning, 5th graders. My name is Miss Call. I am a 5th grade teacher in the dual language program at Clarendon Elementary School. And today we are going to be reviewing the skill of summarizing and synthesizing. I am going to do the first part of the lesson, and then Mr. Meza is going to finish the lesson today. So we are very excited to be here with you. So today's lesson agenda, we're going to go over that learning objective. Then we're going to review some vocabulary and skill review. We will be modeling the skill together. So I'm going to read a text, and then Mr. Meza is going to read a text. And then we will do a lesson debrief and a summary, and then Mr. Meza will go over those next steps with you. All right, today's objective is students will be able to summarize and synthesize information in 2 different texts by using annotations and then a partial flow map. So that skill that we're really going to be reviewing as we're reading is going to be that annotating. With the annotations, we're going to be using our knowledge or schema. And with both of those, we're going to then create that summary and that synthesis. So you might be asking yourself, I know I've heard of these 2 words, and I know I've learned these skills in this year in 5th grade. So let's review what these 2 vocabulary words are. I'm going to move myself here in the middle. Okay. All right. So summarizing is recalling an author's most important ideas from the text. So this might be the main idea. And you're going to generally use that information and that evidence to create a summary. And the words that we talk about when we think of summaries is the words retells, restates, and paraphrases. After we summarize, then the next step beyond that is going to be that synthesizing. So synthesizing is when a reader's ongoing, ever-changing understanding of a text. So you might gain a deeper, newer understanding of what you're reading, or maybe your knowledge is changing as you're progressing through the text. So those words changes, evolves, you're integrating and combining. So today we're going to be synthesizing by creating 2 summaries and then integrating and combining those summaries to gain a better, deeper understanding of our topic. All right, so why do we synthesize? Why? What's the importance of it? Well, synthesizing helps readers put it all together. The most we as readers, we always want to make sure that we're putting the most important points together and that we can move beyond what the author is stating. So maybe we're thinking beyond. It's not going to be right there in the text for us to answer. Readers also should notice the changes in their thinking, right? So as you're reading, your mind might change and your thoughts are going to be changing as you're reading and learning new things as you're moving along. And all good readers are good at summarizing and synthesizing. So let's take a look at this anchor chart that I have over here about synthesizing. So it says my thinking grows and changes as I read. So as you're reading at the beginning part, you might say, at first, I was thinking, okay? So synthesizing might even bring in some of those other skills that you have been working on in the past. So inferencing, right? So at the beginning of your reading, you might inference something, okay? And this is what you might be thinking about it, okay? Then as you are reading, I was thinking, what are you thinking as you're reading the text? Are your thoughts changing? Are they staying the same? Are you growing and learning more as you're reading? And then in the end, what are you thinking? So now you're putting all of that together and you're thinking, now what am I thinking? I'm putting all these important points together. What else can I think beyond what the author has stated? Can I give an opinion? All right, let's see. So, all right, so let's get reading. So I'm going to read from the text titled The Nature of Matter, and this is going to be called Source 1. And then once I film my part of the partial flow map, Mr. Meza is going to get on and he's going to read from Source 2, Transforming Matter. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember, I'm reading from Source 1. It's going to be titled Properties of Matter, pages 34 to 37. And yep, I miscalled. So let's see what we can do here. All right. Okay. So the nature of matter. So remember, as we're reading, I'm going to be annotating and really putting in, I'm trying to think of some evidence that I can put into a summary, right? Because first I'm going to summarize, okay? And so in the nature of matter, the topic we are going to be reading about in this lesson is going to be the properties of matter. And we're going to mainly focus on those physical properties of matter. So as the first thing I'm going to do as I'm reading is before I get into the text, I'm going to go ahead and start looking at those text features. So I noticed that the title is Properties of Matter. So I know that that's what I'm probably going to be learning about in today's lesson. Okay. My first subheading is physical properties. So I'm assuming if it's a property, I'm probably learning about the physical properties. I might ask myself, are there other properties? So you want to be making sure that you're asking questions and using those other skills as well, okay? Then I notice that I see a beautiful diamond right here, and I can read some of the captions or some of the other text features here that says essential vocabulary. So we might be learning about chemical changes, chemical property, chemical reaction, law of conservation, physical change, physical property. I also noticed this table right here that tells us this physical properties of matter. And so this might be telling me what are physical properties of matter, if I can briefly look at it. This says scientists use physical properties to distinguish one sample of matter from another. So this is all I'm going through. I'm just doing a quick little picture walk and looking at those text features. The next title says physical changes. And then I have some pictures. It looks like somebody's sawing some wood. It looks like I have some origami down here at the bottom. It looks like somebody over here is maybe shaping some wood. So, and this person down here is doing some pottery. So maybe I might be thinking that something with these types of materials might be a physical change. So those are all types of things that I might be thinking about before I start reading. So thinking about those inferences, right, those previous skills to help me before I even start reading to summarize what are these physical changes. Okay, so let's go back and let's start reading. Okay, so right now I'm looking for text evidence that's going to help me write a summary, main idea of this, these couple pages. So let's go ahead and get started. It says, what are the properties of matter and how can these properties change? You have been reading about some of the properties of matter. Matter has two kinds of properties. We can use physical properties and chemical properties to describe matter. Physical property, a physical property is a trait you can observe without changing the composition of the matter. Color, odor, texture, and density are physical properties. Melting point, boiling point, and the state of matter are also physical properties. Look at the chart on page 35 to see more. Okay, so right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to annotate right there. If I want to know and define what a physical property is, I'm going to go ahead. So I put in my Post-it note, okay? And I've just copied the sentence that says, a physical property is a trait you can observe without changing the composition of the matter. Color, odor, texture, and density are all our physical properties. So if I'm writing a summary about physical properties, this is a great piece of evidence that's going to support my summary. Okay, oops. All right, so back onto the second paragraph. Some physical properties are known as extensive properties. These depend on the amount of matter that you have. Length, mass, volume, and weight are examples of extensive properties. They all increase or decrease as the amount of matter changes. Other physical properties do not depend on the amount of matter. These properties are called intensive properties. These remain the same no matter how much of the matter you have. The state of matter, boiling point, melting point, and density are other examples. Okay, all right, so let's go to the next page. All right, I'm going to move myself. All right, so remember, I'm looking for evidence again that's going to help me to write a summary about physical property and what I'm reading here about the types of changes in matter. Okay, physical changes. Origami is the ancient art of paper folding. Colorful creatures are formed entirely by folding paper. Making origami involves a physical change in matter. A physical change is any change that alters the form or appearance of matter, but does not change its composition. When you fold a sheet of paper, the paper is still paper, even though it looks different. Physical changes can be undone. A folded piece of paper can be unfolded. Okay, let's stop there for a minute. I want everybody to think for a second. What might be a piece of evidence that we can pull from this paragraph that would help us to write a summary about the physical properties and physical changes of matter? I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think about it. Are you guys ready? Okay, here we go. Here's the evidence I pulled. Let's see if you agree. It says, a physical change is any change that alters the form or appearance of matter, but does not change its composition. So I wrote that down as my evidence that I'm going to be able to help me write my summary. Okay, let's continue. A change of state is another example of a physical change. When matter changes from one state to another, its composition stays the same. Only its form changes. Think about what happens when an ice cube melts. Both the ice cube and the liquid water are composed of water molecules. It is only the arrangement of the molecules that is different. The picture shows more examples of physical changes. Okay, so we're going to stop again. I want to give you an opportunity to find the text evidence that you think we could use that would support us writing a summary. Ready? Go. Do you see it? All right, let's see if we agree. What did I put? I put the sentence, I actually wrote two sentences. I wrote, a change of state is another example of a physical change. When matter changes from one state to another, its composition stays the same, only its form changes. Do you agree with me? Great. All right, now that we've read our selection and we have annotated our notes with our evidence, let's now get into that partial flow map and start writing our summary. Okay, so we're gonna head back over here. All right, so, all right, okay, well, all right, so I went ahead and I put my 3 Post-it notes in my source of my partial flow map of my evidence. So I just took those three quotes that I wrote, I told you about in the reading. Okay? And then from those 3 quotes, I am now going to summarize. So in my summary, I'm writing, remember, I'm not copying word for word the quotes. I'm now taking the information and putting it in my own words. I'm paraphrasing it. I'm retelling, right? So in source 1, I learned about physical properties and changes. A physical property is when a person can observe changes, which include color, odor, texture, and density. A physical change is altering the form of the matter from one state to another. Okay. Would you agree that this is what we read? Can I get a 2 thumbs up if this is what you agree? Or I don't agree at all. All right, I hope everybody has 2 thumbs up saying that you agree with my summary. All right, that's it for me. I'm now going to pass it off to Mr. Meza, who is going to read the second text with you and then synthesize the 2 summaries together. I hope you all have a fabulous day. It's been a pleasure teaching you all. Bye.
Hi guys, welcome back. Mr. Meza here, 5th grade from Clarendon. I think we're pretty familiar with each other. Today I'm coming to you from my lab. Today we're going to be talking about, we're doing Source 2. Miss Call did a lesson with you guys about synthesizing, summarizing and synthesizing using a text. But today what I'm going to be focusing on are on text features that also can help you come up with the summary and synthesize. So this is going to be part 2 of the same lesson, and I'm going to work on source number 2. So welcome back, and let's get started. Hi guys, I'm back. Just like I said in my introduction, I am going to jump right in where Miss Call left off. She did the nature of matter with source 1, and I'm going to be focusing on source 2, transferring matter. And I'm going to be focusing on pages 12 and 16 in your consumable that is assigned to you if you want to follow along. So I'm going to try to make the text a little bit bigger. So like I said in my introduction, I'm going to be focusing more on the text features. And here, I'm not going to read every paragraph because that's the skill that Miss Call focused on with you. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be thinking a lot, incorporating some of those skills that we've done throughout this distance learning. So I'm going to look at the text features, look at what the title is, investigate changes in matter, and I'm going to annotate. So what I'm going to do that's different than Miss Call is that she quoted directly from the text. I'm going to use the text features to paraphrase kind of what the images are telling me. So you're going to see me doing a lot of thinking out loud. So let's jump right into the first one. Here I see somebody slicing a carrot. Here a can is being crushed. Here a pencil is being shaven. And in the text, I did preview the text, And what it's ultimately saying is that here, I want you to look right here. Physical changes alter but shape and size of matter, but not the substance. Alter means make different, and then but the substance, it refers to the material. So for example, here in these examples, the slicing of a carrot, yeah, it changes the shape, but it doesn't change if you put a carrot back together. It does not change what you've started out with. Same thing with a can, and same thing for a pencil. And we're all familiar with sharpening pencils because we go through them quickly. So either if you were to sharpen a pencil all the way through, shave it all the way through, and put it back together, you would still end up with the same amount of weight that you started with a pencil. So that's my first evidence that I'm going to use when I put it into my partial flow map. Miss Call already went through that with you, so I'm still going to think through the pieces that I find interesting that are going to help me come up with my summary before I synthesize. The next thing, I put the stickies in green are the things that I'm going to put into my evidence of my partial flow map, but I thought this was interesting. This image here. This image should be really ringing some bells, because this is, and here in my little note, this is just a side note. I wanted to point out that this is a picture of the Colorado River as it flows through our great Grand Canyon here in Arizona, creating a physical change and altering the landscape. So there you have it again. It's a physical change that changed the landscape, but it didn't alter what the matter was. Just wanted to point that out. On the next page, it says change of state. Here it talks about different changes of state and mixtures. It gives a simple example, something we're all familiar with, salad, the salad mixture. It's saying that if we cut up all the ingredients in a salad and we mix them together, yes, it's a mixture and it changes the state, but it did not change the ingredients. So if you were to take all the ingredients out, it would still be the same. They would still have the same, you'd still have what you started with, but when you mix it together, it still gives you the same substance, same materials. You still have the tomatoes, lettuce, onions, all of those ingredients. But more importantly here, you see these big text features, and it says water can occur freely in nature as a solid, liquid, or gas. Here we can see that there's ice and that there's water flowing. When solid rock is heated into flow as a liquid rock lava. So when the rock is heated, right, in a volcanic explosion, you can see that it would move as lava. And then our last example down here, anybody guess what this is? If you guessed it correct, it's the Golden Gate Bridge. It says air is a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, and other invisible gases. Here, the most important part, I believe, is this text feature where it shows you the three different changes of state. Goes from a solid to a liquid to a gas, and it shows you that the process can go vice versa. And it shows you what those processes that are called in between. But that's not what we're focusing on today. We just want evidence that tells us the different changes in matter. So the summary that I came up with after I saw these text features and I read the captions is that there are three common states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. And this text feature, water is a solid, you can see it right here, which is ice, melts into water, is a liquid, and then it evaporates as a vapor or steam. So that's the most important part that I took from that. And then the last feature that I'm going to focus on is this sorting and recycling physical changes at work. This is something that we're all familiar with because if I'm correct, most of us teachers have somebody who's our recycling manager in our classrooms. So sorting and recycling physical changes at work. When a person drops something into a recycling bin, the person is adding to a mixture, just like I explained in the salad example. The mixture could include paper, metal cans, plastic, and glass. A recycling center has a complex way of separating the mixture. First, the mixture is put on a spinning table. The paper and the cardboard fall off the table. Everything that is left moves along a conveyor belt. Next, a magnet pulls out the steel cans. Then a strong fan blows the plastic into a container. Finally, the remaining materials are sorted by workers or by an electronic scanner so they too can be melted and recycled. There's a lot, and what I took away from that was that a recycling mixture must be sorted into paper, plastic, and glass. Those are not just the three, and that's why I put ETC, which means etc., because aluminum could also be included in that, in order to be reprocessed to make new items. So those are the main points that I took. Again, like I said, Ms. Call took text evidence specifically from the text to help her summarize her section, and I'm taking the text features and the captions to create mine. So let's move next to that part. Okay. So in Ms. Call's, she had her 3 pieces of evidence, and here is what she came up with as her summary from source 1, and here are mine. First one, physical changes alter the shape and size of matter, but not the substance. Next, there are 3 common states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. In this feature, we saw that there was that solid turned to ice, which then melted into water, and then which the water changed into a liquid or evaporated as steam. And then in that last example with the recycling mixture must be sorted into those 3 examples that I gave in order to be reprocessed to make a new item. Like Ms. Call said, this is a lot of information to take, but this is my evidence that I'm using, that I'm now taking and summarizing what that important information from the captions and the text features told me. So to summarize, in source 2, I learned that there are 3 states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. That's supported by my evidence. And then I took those other 2 pieces and I summarized it into one big sentence. Matter moving from one physical state to another does not alter the identity of the material. And we know that because they gave us several examples in the consumable. So to put that all together, I'm synthesizing source 1 from Ms. Call and source 2 from me. And this is what we came up together as our synthesis, which is our conclusion. So our question that we asked ourselves is, what causes matter to change states? Here's what we came up with, very simple. In conclusion, matter can undergo physical changes which can affect its appearance or physical state. And that synthesis takes parts of both our summaries and parts of our evidence. So our lesson debrief. What strategies did you see us do as we read the text? We used many strategies from previous lessons. 2, what steps did we take to ensure our summaries were correct? We made sure that we had pieces of evidence in our summary to come up with our synthesis. And 3, what steps did we take to ensure our synthesis was correct? I look back to make sure that parts of our evidence and our summary were in our synthesis. So in summary, good readers stop to put it all together. That's what we did. We summarized by annotating, gathering the most important information, and record the information in order. We synthesize by combining and integrating information, increasing a new, deeper understanding of an idea. So we use that evidence and that summary to come up with our synthesis. and then we thought beyond the text. What did we find in our findings through our reading? Last but not least, just let's revisit our objective. Students will be able to summarize and synthesize information in 2 different texts. In our case, Ms. Call did source 1 and I did source 2 by using annotations. We used annotations from Benchmark and we filled in our partial flow map. So then again, our skill was to annotate. Our knowledge was our schema, what were we learning as we were reading, and then our strategy, we summarized what we found in our evidence, and then we completed our synthesis in our conclusion. Independent practice and choice words. Don't forget this step to complete your independent reading activity with your assigned book from Benchmark.
Good morning. I am so happy you are joining us today. I'm Dr. Saunders, the junior high ELA teacher at Cesar Chavez Leadership Academy, located in the Roosevelt School District. And one of the things I love to do is to read to my 7 grandchildren. Let's take a look at a picture about our story today. Did you know that on April 21st, 1877, Frederick Douglass, pictured on the left, was appointed U.S. Marshal of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., by President Rutherford B. Hayes, pictured on the right. This made Frederick Douglass the first African American confirmed for a presidential appointment by the U.S. Senate. Our story today is a passage from the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. This is an autobiography penned by Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born a slave, but he learned to read, he escaped from slavery, and went on to become a famous speaker, writer, abolitionist, and an advocate for the right to vote for women and former slaves. Today's strategy is on summarization and synthesizing our story. Every so often, readers need to stop and put it all together. They think about all of the information they have learned so far, and they figure out how it all fits together. Today, I'm going to model how I summarize and synthesize information. When I synthesize, I remember the important ideas. I sometimes make generalizations and judgments about the information. Let's begin our passage. I lived in Master Hugh's family about 7 years. During this time, I succeeded in learning to read and write. In accomplishing this, I was compelled to resort to various stratagems. I had no regular teacher. My mistress, who had kindly commenced to instruct me, had, in compliance with the advice and direction of her husband, not only ceased to instruct, but had set her face against my being instructed by anyone else. It is due, however, to my mistress to say of her that she did not adopt this course of treatment immediately. She at first lacked the depravity, and that one indicates that there's more information located at the bottom of the page. And if you look, you will see that depravity is defined as moral corruption. So his mistress at first lacked moral corruption, indispensable to shutting me up in mental darkness. It was at least necessary for her to have some training in the exercise of irresponsible power to make her equal to the task of treating me as though I were a brute. Let's stop here. So here we have a slave, Frederick Douglass, whose mistress had begun to teach him to read. However, her husband told her not to teach him to read. And what Frederick Douglass soon realized was that once she began to not teach him to read, she decided that she did not want anyone else to teach him to read, that she was going to make sure that he stayed in what he called mental darkness. This had to have been a very sad situation for Frederick Douglass. Let's continue. My mistress was, as I have said, a kind and tender-hearted woman, and in the simplicity of her soul, she commenced, when I first went to live with her, to treat me as she supposed one human being ought to treat another. So you see, we have a vocabulary word, commence. Let's take a look and see what does commence mean. Commence, when things commence, they begin or start. So when he first went to live with her, she started to treat him as she supposed one human being ought to be treated, as she supposed one human being ought to treat another. And entering upon the duties of a slaveholder, she did not seem to perceive that I sustained to her the relationship of a mere chattel. And here we have a footnote again, number 2. Let's see what number 2 means. It defines chattel as property or slaves. So chattel is another word for slave. So in the beginning, his mistress did not perceive that he was just a slave, which is why she took it upon herself to teach him to read. And that for her to treat me as a human being was not only wrong, but dangerously so. Slavery proved as injurious to her as it did to me. That's a very important statement. Slavery to her proved as injurious to her as it did to me. So Frederick Douglass was a slave, but his mistress also became a slave to the system of slavery, that she was then no longer able to treat him as she would have another human being. When I went there, she was a pious, warm, and tender-hearted woman. There was no sorrow or suffering for which she had not a tear. She had bread for the hungry, clothes for the naked, and comfort for every mourner that came within her reach. Slavery soon proved its ability to divest her of these heavenly qualities. Under its influence, the tender heart became stone, and the lamb-like disposition gave way to one of tiger-like fierceness. The first step in her downward course was in her ceasing to instruct me. She now commenced to practice her husband's precept. Footnote number 3, precepts. Let's see what that means. Precepts means rules or principles regarding action or conduct. So she began to practice her husband's action and conduct. She finally became even more violent in her opposition than her husband himself. She was not satisfied with simply doing as well as he had commanded. She seemed anxious to do better. Nothing seemed to make her more angry than to see me with the newspaper. She seemed to think that here lay the danger. I have had her rush at me with a face made all up of fury and snatch from me a newspaper in a manner that fully revealed her apprehension. Now, apprehension is one of our vocabulary words. Let's take a look and see what it means. Apprehension is the fear or dread of the future. Now, what do you think she was apprehensive about Frederick Douglass learning to read? That perhaps if he learned to read, then he would not be satisfied with just being a slave. Let's read on. She was an apt woman and a little experience soon demonstrated to her satisfaction that education and slavery was incompatible with each other. From this time, I was most narrowly watched. If I was in a separate room any considerable length of time, I was sure to be suspected of having a book and was at once called to give an account of myself. All this, however, was too late. The first step had been taken. Mistress, in teaching me the alphabet, had given me the inch, and no precaution could prevent me from taking the L. The plan which I adopted and the one by which I was most successful was that of making friends of all of the little white boys that I met in the street. As many of these as I could, I converted into teachers. With their kindly aid, obtained at different times and in different places, I finally succeeded in learning to read. When I was sent of errands, I always took my book with me, and by going one part of my errand quickly, I found time to get a lesson before my return. I used also to carry bread with me, enough of which was always in the house, and to which I was always welcome, for I was much better off in this regard than many of the poor white children in our neighborhood. This bread I used to bestow upon the hungry little urchins, who in return would give me the more valuable bread of knowledge. So let's pause here. What was Frederick Douglass doing? Because his mistress had forbade him from learning to read, he developed a plan where he would have the little kids, particularly the boys in the neighborhood, help him learn to read. He would take his book, he would run his errand very quickly, and then he would have a little time in which he could have one of the boys continue with reading. And he used food as incentive or pay for these little boys, helping him to learn to read. This bread I used to bestow upon the hungry little urchins, who in return would give me something more, would give me more, that more valuable bread of knowledge. I am strongly tempted to give the names of 2 or 3 of those little boys as a testimony of the gratitude and affection I bear them. But prudence forbids. And what does prudence mean? Prudence is the wise handling of practical matters. So he would not name those little boys for fear they would get in trouble and would stop being able to teach them to read. And of course, he would also be in trouble. Not that it would injure me, but it might embarrass them, for it is almost an unpardonable offense to teach slaves to read in this Christian country. It is enough to say of the dear little fellows that they lived on Philpott Street, very near Durgan and Bailey's shipyard. I used to talk this matter of slavery over with them. I would sometimes say to them, I wish I could be as free as they would be when they got to be men. You will be as free as soon as you're 21, but I am a slave for life. Have not I as good a right to be as free as you? These words used to trouble them. They would express for me the liveliest sympathy and console me with the hope that something would occur by the time by which I might be free. I was now about 12 years old, and the thought of being a slave for life began to bear heavily upon my heart. Just about this time, I got a hold of a book entitled The Columbian Orator. Here's another footnote, number 4. Let's see what it says. The Columbian Orator is a collection of political essays, poems, and dialogues that were used to teach reading and speaking in the beginning of the 19th century. So Frederick Douglass was able to get this book entitled The Columbian Orator. Every opportunity I got, I used to read this book. Among much of the other interesting matters, I found in it a dialogue between a master and his slave. The slave was represented as having run away from his master 3 times. The dialogue represented the conversation which took place between them when the slave was retaken the 3rd time. In this dialogue, the whole argument in behalf of slavery was brought forward by the master, all of which was disposed of by the slave. The slave was made to say some very smart as well as impressive things in reply to his master, things which had the desired though unexpected effect, for the conversation resulted in the voluntary emancipation of the slave on the part of the master. Let's pause here. So Frederick Douglass spent his childhood learning to read from the little boys in the neighborhood, and he paid them with bread that he got from his master and mistress' kitchen. He then got a book called The Columbian Orator, in which it had a profound effect on him because there was a conversation between a master and slave where there was an argument on the value of slavery. And in effect, the slave was so eloquent that he was able to convince his master to voluntarily emancipate, which means to free him from slavery. Imagine this conversation and this have the effect it would have on Frederick Douglass, who was an actual slave as well. In the same book, I met one of Sheridan's mighty speeches on and in behalf of Catholic emancipation. Another footnote, number 5. One of Sheridan's mighty speeches on and in behalf of Catholic emancipation, Richard Brinsley Sheridan, was an Irish playwright and politician who made speeches about the rights of Roman Catholics in Britain and in Ireland. And in those times, people who were of Catholic faith were treated as second-class citizens, not as poorly as slaves were, but they were not welcome or seen as valuable members of society during this time. These were choice documents for me. I read them over and over again with unabated interest. Unabated. What does unabated mean? Unabated means if something is unabated, it keeps its full force without decreasing. So Frederick Douglass never lost his interest in reading and rereading these articles. They gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul, which had frequently flashed through my mind and died away for want of utterance. The moral which I gained from the dialogue was the power of truth over the conscience of even a slaveholder. What I got from Sheridan was a bold denunciation of slavery. What does denunciation mean? Denunciation. The public condemnation of something as wrong or evil. So Sheridan denunciated and called slavery a wrong and evil system and a powerful vindication of human rights. Let's look at vindication. Vindication, the evidence or proof that someone's claim is correct. So Sheridan had vindication on human rights. The reading of these documents enabled me to utter my thoughts and to meet the argument brought forward to sustain slavery. But while they relieved me of one difficulty, they brought on another even more painful than the one of which I was relieved. The more I read, the more I was led to abhor and detest my enslavers. I could regard them in no other light than a band of successful robbers who had left their homes and gone to Africa and stolen us from our homes, and in a strange land reduced us to slavery. I loathed them as being the meanest as well as the most wicked of men. As I read and contemplated the subject, behold, that very discontentment which Master Hughes had predicted would follow my learning to read had already come, to torment and sting my soul to unutterable anguish. As I writhed under it, I would at times feel that learning to read had been a curse rather than a blessing. It had given me a view of my wretched condition without the remedy. It opened my eyes to the horrible pit, but to no ladder upon which to get out. In moments of agony, I envied my fellow slaves for their stupidity. I often wished myself a beast. I preferred the condition of the meanest reptile to my own, anything, no matter what, to get rid of thinking. So let's pause here. So because Frederick Douglass had learned to read, he was then able to read information that explained what his condition was, to help him to understand that as a slave, he would never, ever be free. He would forever be owned and be subject to the punishment and the cruelty of his master and mistress, which is one of the reasons why they did not want him to learn to read, because once he learned to read, it was obvious he would then become dissatisfied with his situation. And even Frederick Douglass thought to himself that perhaps it was better that he did learn to read, that he was stupid, that he did not know what condition he was actually living in. It was this everlasting thinking of my condition that tormented me. There was no getting rid of it. It was pressed upon me by every object within sight or hearing, animate or inanimate. The silver trump of freedom had roused my soul to eternal wakefulness. Freedom now appeared to disappear no more forever. It was heard in every sound and seen in everything. It was ever present to torment me with a sense of my wretched condition. I saw nothing without seeing it. I heard nothing without hearing it, and felt nothing without feeling it. It looked from every star. It smiled in every calm, breathed in every wind, and moved in every storm. That ends our passage. Let's think about Frederick Douglass and his situation. Had he not learned to read, he wouldn't know what it meant to not be a slave. But because he now understood what that meant, he was, of course, greatly dissatisfied, which led to him attempting to escape from slavery. Just think about if we lived in a world where certain people were not allowed to read because of their situation. Would you want to live in that kind of world? I hope that you enjoy learning about Frederick Douglass' struggle to learn to read, especially when it was against the law for slaves like himself to learn to read. Think about how fortunate you are that learning to read is no longer against the law and that everyone who wants to can learn to read. Goodbye and well wishes. Stay safe, and I hope that you read a book between now and the next time I see you. Goodbye.
You've been watching Phoenix TV's Study Hall, brought to you by District 8 and our partners at Osborne and Roosevelt School Districts. Tune in Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for more Study Hall. I hope you learned something today and keep up the great work.